Hello team, how's it going? Welcome to today's video. We've got some breaking news. You may have seen that over the past 24 hours, the Russian President Putin has sent a warning to the US, the UK and other NATO countries supporting Ukraine in this Ukraine and Russian war. Last night, Putin sent some medium ballistic, some calling it ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles, into the city of Dnipro in Ukraine as a warning to the US and the UK. To Ukrainians, this is just another day in the war. But to the UK and the US, this could be a warning. These sort of intermediate, sort of medium range ballistic missiles struck the city, and they're not your sort of standard cruise missiles. They're more of a multiple cluster bomb, cluster missile type missile, where the warhead can be sent via a long range, and then once it reaches a certain altitude, that one missile will then turn into a cluster of missiles and then guide on to a target, which you'll see on the video how that happens. What we'll do is we'll see what Putin has said, on a television sort of speech to his country and to the West.
Было проведено в том числе и испытание одной из новейших российских ракетных систем средней дальности. В данном случае с баллистической ракетой в безъядерном гиперзвуковом оснащении. Наши ракетчики назвали ее «Орешник». Испытания прошли успешно. Цель пуска достигнута. Повторю, испытания в боевых условиях ракетной системы «Орешник» проводятся нами в ответ на агрессивные действия стран НАТО в отношении России. Вопрос о дальнейшем развертывании ракет средней и меньшей дальности будет решаться нами в зависимости от действий США и их сателлитов.
As you can see there, he said this was a test into Ukraine. And this is where it's going to get people thinking, because in this war, multiple rocket launcher systems are used, artillery pieces are used, bombs are dropped from fast air, you've got drones. It's an everyday occurrence. But what he is saying is the tests have been achieved. Okay, they've launched this new rocket, this medium range rocket missile, and then he goes on to say, depending on what the United States do, and I think he means the UK as well, because as you would have seen the day before, the US approved Ukraine to launch US ATACMS into Russian territory, okay, into Russia. And then the UK also decided that Ukraine are allowed to use their Storm Shadow missiles. They were both used. Putin has said that their air defense successfully destroyed these attacks. But then, as he says, after this test, we will go on to use these short range and medium range missiles, depending on what the US decide to do. And the reason he's saying this is because he does want to deter the US and the UK from getting into this war. The issue I have with this is, which will come in a future video, and I have spoke about on it, and you would have seen it all on the news, he has got North Korean troops involved. He says this is between Russia and Ukraine. NATO are to not get involved, but then he is getting his allies involved. So very hypocritical there. But what he is doing by launching this test missile, launching these tests, he is demonstrating, doing a show of force and a show of power to the rest of the world. He's saying, look, we have these missiles. They can hit accurately, and this is what they can do. Your move next. And whatever your move next is what we're going to, we'll decide on what we're going to do. What the US and the UK and other NATO countries have got to do now is got to decide whether they're going to call his bluff or not. Because no one actually knows. He is not backing down. He has gone into Ukraine over 1,000 days ago now. Back in February 2022, he decided to invade Ukraine, and the war is still ongoing. They are gaining ground within Ukraine, and he is not backing down. But the question is whether he will attack US or UK sites. I believe if he does, it will be military sites within UK and the United States and any other sort of NATO countries that decide to get involved. Some defence experts say we're possibly a long way off from this, but I'm not too sure. He has just launched these a day after the ATACMS and the Storm Shadow missiles were used. So he is not messing around. With Putin, he is sort of a man of his words, but then he also could say he's a bit of a bully, likes to push his way around, and he's trying to get his own way. This is now a very, very tough decision for those within the UK and the US sort of defence and politicians area, because do you call his bluff? That's the question. Do you continue allow Ukraine to use the ATACMS, the Storm Shadows? Do you still authorise them to attack countries deep within Russia? Who knows? And the reason we know that he is trying to threaten the US and UK is one, because of what he has said. Okay, he has said, depending on what the United States do, will depend on what we do with these short and medium range missiles. Also, if you look at this map here, the Dnipro area here is relatively close to the Russian border compared to other places in Ukraine which he could have struck the UK, United States. And he's used a missile that has a relatively long range. People are calling it ICBM, okay, intercontinental ballistic missile, which means it can go intercontinental, okay, so go from one continent to the next continent. They are on the same continent. They're on the border of each other. So to use such a missile on Ukraine in that sort of area, he is sending a massive warning. He is saying, look, we can do it. We can strike you, and we can strike you accurately. But that's what's going on at the minute. I don't know what the US and the UK are going to do. They have obviously decided to advance what is going on. They're trying to push Ukraine to make advancements in this war, to hopefully bring this war to an end. But Putin is very strong-minded. He sticks with what he wants to do, and he is not going to go down without a fight. So we've just got to see what happens next. But these new missiles, they're dangerous. Like I said, they're sort of a multiple missile ICBM, where, like I said, where they come overhead, once they hit a certain altitude, the head pops off, it opens up, and then multiple missiles will then strike a target. And then obviously if you're launching 4 or 5 of them, and say this missile holds 4 or 5 warheads, or bombs as you want to call them, then you can do quite a bit of damage with it. At the minute, he's also saying it's non-nuclear. I think with him saying that, he is also hinting at the point that he could go nuclear. We struck with a medium range missile, non-nuclear. There's no need to say that at a minute, personally, unless you're trying to hint at your enemy that this is non-nuclear, but we could go nuclear. I think the war is getting pretty scary at the minute for those that I think who have never been to war, or have never been in this situation. Really the last time the US, the UK and other countries were really under threat like this, you're talking World War II. So he's going to get people talking. People who are watching this, who are civilians, are going to get nervous. They're going to be like, right, what's our president? What's our prime minister going to do next? What's the defence secretary going to do next? He's going to get people worried, and he's going to get the civilian population talking. nervous, scared, worried, to then sort of put pressure on their politicians. Very, very scary time. He has used this tactically. We will just have to see what the US and UK do. But that's where we're at in a minute. Russia has directly now, in a sense, threatened the US and the UK. Okay, what you do next will decide our next move. We're going to continue attacking Ukraine. Right? This is an everyday occurrence. But what you do next will then decide our next move and where these missiles strike next. But that's what's going on in a minute. I'd be very interested to hear what you've got to say. So please comment below on your thoughts on this. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.